So, hi everyone, and welcome to episode one for 2025. So, I took a bit of a break there in the second half of the year, to do another couple of projects on the side. So, I am super excited when the energy came back in to really step into the podcast, healing through and after trauma. And it's all about, how we can have these ailments, we can have this trauma, we can have these issues happen in our life. um and sometimes, when these things happen, we think there isn't any hope, and I can't go on, and there's nothing else out there for me, only what I'm told on a medical side or an emotional side or a mental side. And I suppose the whole thing about this podcast for me is to bring that hope to people, to bring people who I've worked with, and definitely a lot of friends that I've met along the way. And I do believe that all of these people that I've met along the way have shown me something as well, about resilience, about strength, and about how to move forward through our traumas. And sometimes as well, it is that thing, even for myself, sometimes we're still going through stuff. Sometimes we're still, people think, oh, well, Sharon, I haven't healed fully, so I couldn't come on your podcast. No, that's not what it's about. It's about what are the actions that you're taking, even when we can be in the midst of it, even when we can be, on that path to change. What are the tools and the techniques that you're using alongside with, medication and all of these things. So that is what we are going to be talking about every month. So it's going to be a monthly podcast, but some of the things that I will be teaching on the YouTube channel will come into this as well. But I will have a guest on every month to share their story, their journey, and just to give us those little bit of nuggets, that we might need. And again, as I said, even in all the other ones, it might not just be you. The stories are, obviously interesting, and the stories are, fantastic. But you could be someone at home living with someone with this issue. You could be someone that, might meet someone in the future, who is going through these things and feel alone and feel like, that there's no hope for them. And you can then, share this with them. You can give that information and that knowledge. So, on that, I am going to introduce my first speaker for 2025, and I am delighted to introduce this person because, again, she has been very much in my life since 2004. Hard to believe it's been that long. So, in around 2004, I met this beautiful lady, and I'm going to introduce her now as Annette Glynn. So, hi, Annette,
Hi,
welcome.
hi, Sharon. Thanks for having me.
No worries, no worries. So, just a little bit about Annette and our journey together. So, Annette is a reflexologist now. And again, she'll share her story in a few minutes. But we met in Australia way back when, 2004, 2005, when
Hard to believe, God, 20 years.
we were living the dream. So we had no responsibilities at that time. And then what evolved from that was, we went through that year through mutual friends. That's how we met each other. And we lived beside each other and in and out of each other's houses all through Australia, and we had that huge connection, and it was fantastic then, when we came back. And it was actually a couple of years after we came back that, the energies brought us in together again in a different way.
Mm.
And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I just want to, again, introduce you, Annette, and I'm going to give you the video to, tell your story, and to, again, just tell who you are, and again, a bit of your story.
Okay, so as Sharon said, we met in Australia back in 2004. Hard to believe, 20 years, and
Don't look at David.
oh God, and I suppose we were living life. We were singing. You know what I mean? Like we were young. We were only what 24,
Yeah.
and having a great time. And I suppose we spent the year in Australia. And when I left Australia, then I went to travel. So we went to New Zealand, myself and two other girls, Elaine and Eve, and we went to New Zealand, and then we kind of traveled through Hawaii and back to America. But I suppose what I'm here, I suppose my whole journey is I have Crohn's disease. And that was the start of my journey. So I suppose we left Australia and we traveled to New Zealand, and I started getting pains in my stomach. And past nothing of it, you know yourself,
Yeah.
you're kind of, I suppose you're on the go and you're eating different foods and things like that. And it
And
kind of
had
put,
you any of that in Australia?
I remember all right. There was one weekend I'd offered pains and I had a little bit of bloody diarrhea in Australia, and I
Okay.
did go to a doctor, and she asked me, was there any Crohn's in the family? Never heard of it, so it was kind of fobbed off. And she
Yeah.
gave me, I can't remember now what she gave me, but it all cleared up. It was fine.
Okay.
So do you know what I mean? I don't think I had any issues, not that I can remember anyway
Yeah.
after that.
And I suppose for me, because when all of this came to light, and everything like that, for me, I would never have, thought like
No.
yourself that you were sick or anything like that because we were
Yeah.
all on the go.
Yeah, and I suppose at that time it was just kind of like an upset tummy kind of thing. It was
Mm.
something, and it did pass. And then I remember I went to New Zealand, and like that, stomach started playing up again. We went on then to Hawaii, and I remember it was when I was in Hawaii, it got really, really bad. So I was passing an awful lot of blood, and it was just wasn't really eating. My stomach was in bits. So I just, we were traveling. I battled on. I kept going. Do you know what I mean? Got over it, as you could say. And
Yeah.
then we flew to LA, and we were traveling from LA down to San Francisco. And I remember one of our stops was Santa Barbara. And like, it's funny when I look back now, I don't know where I got the strength. Like, I remember walking through LA, which remember the big backpacks we used to have and a wheelie suitcase and going around looking for accommodation. And like that now, I was, stomach was in bits, passing blood, everything. So I eventually went to a hospital in Santa Barbara, and they basically told me I had a traveler's bug, gave me antibiotics, and sent me on my way.
Wow.
But it was when we eventually got down to San Francisco, I spent the whole week in bed in San Francisco. So we were supposed to go to New York, then was our next stop. But I had a brother living in Boston. So I changed my flights and went to my own then down to Boston. And I remember he collected me at the airport, and he always says all you could see coming was teeth because I had lost so much weight. So
Brothers.
yeah, yeah. And but he collected me at the airport, and he was like, God, Annette, we need to get you to a doctor. I said, no, I'm grand, I've a traveler's bug. All I need is sleep. That's all I kept saying. All I need is sleep. So he brought me back to his house, and he went back to work, and his wife rang me then a couple of hours later, and I got an awful pain, was on the phone to her. So she came home and brought me into the hospital. So I suppose, long story short, they did quite a number of tests on me in the hospital. But I was, at this stage now, I was very ill. I had lost a lot of blood. Um, my organs were starting to,
I remember getting that message
yeah,
that you were
yeah,
really, really sick.
yeah. And I remember I woke up in the hospital room, and to see my brother and a priest. And
Mhm.
Seamus says, Annette, you're after being anointed. And I was like, oh, Jesus. But yeah, so my parents were called over from Ireland. They'd come over and everything. And I remember the news of getting, like, before my parents came over, the doctors came in and told me what they discovered was I had Crohn's disease. And all I kept thinking was, oh my God, a disease. Do you know what I mean? I was like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm going to
yeah,
die. Do you know what I mean? But
yeah, yeah. And it's scary, and it's that shock factor. It really is that shock factor when we're diagnosed with something.
yeah, yeah. And I suppose like I had lost an awful lot of blood, so I had to get blood transfusions. My
Okay.
organs were starting to fail because like that I hadn't been eating. So I was malnourished. And so I spent about over 4 weeks in hospital in
Wow.
Boston, where I had to be fed through a tube, and basically just bed for the 4 weeks. And probably the last week they started kind of getting me to walk around. And I remember like even there was a small corridor. It used to take me an hour to walk from one end to the other. They used to have little chairs left out for me,
Wow.
trying to build up my strength. And I suppose, yeah, it was, and I suppose it was a tough, like even my mother now, she's like, she doesn't like talking about it. She was
Yeah.
like, because I was so sick. Where I suppose when I was going through it, I suppose they seen it all. you
Yeah.
know, and so I suppose I spent that time in hospital there, and I probably would have been longer in hospital only for I wanted to go home. And they said they'd let me home and conditioned that I go straight into hospital. I came home to Ireland.
Okay.
So I was sent home in a high dose of steroids and got home here, and I was about 3 months waiting to be seen here.
I know. Yeah.
You know, so yeah, but then once I finally did, so I remember coming home and I was like, for months I was just so weak and I had no energy and was on high dose of steroids. So I suppose once I got seen over here, I was put on a treatment plan. So I was
Okay.
on
And
in
was
your
that 3 months? Was it about 3 months
I was
before
about
you were
three
seen?
months before I got into an outpatients clinic here in Ireland. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. But I suppose being on the steroid thing kind of made me stable.
Okay.
Do you know what
Okay.
I mean? So I wasn't like I had improved, but I suppose I had improved before I left the hospital. They started me eating, and I was being fed for a tube probably for 3 weeks, and then they started introducing bland foods. But even
Okay.
that, when I came home, like all I could eat was I remember like plain chicken fillets, cream crackers, white bread. You know what I mean? It was such a plain diet. I couldn't eat. I couldn't tolerate anything.
Okay.
So yeah, so then so that was it. And then they started me on a treatment plan here. So I was on Imurin and Pentasa. So I was on maybe 13 tablets a day.
Okay. Wow. So tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about Crohn's and, again, like that, can it just come on us or is it a build up or
Yeah, well, like that with me, I think it just like I don't remember ever having anything major. You know what I mean? It was
yeah,
never. Do you know what I mean? And then like bar that time in Australia, but then I suppose most people have issues with their stomach, don't they? Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
bloating and like either constipation or diarrhea. You know, a lot of
yeah,
people would have. So
and
there was
pass it
nothing.
off?
Do you know what I mean? Like there was nothing that stood out to me, or
Yeah.
like there was nobody in the family. I never heard of it before.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know, yeah.
So it's
So
not
it's
a, as I would say, a genetic thing or
well, they actually say it is, but it
okay.
was funny because nobody in my family, I never heard of it. But since I was diagnosed, I have a first cousin on my mom's side was diagnosed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And is it what they would call, an autoimmune?
Yes, it's an
Yeah.
autoimmune disease. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, what Crohn's disease is, it's an inflammatory bowel disease, but it can affect anywhere from your mouth all the way
Okay.
through. Yeah. So
Okay.
like I would have suffered very bad with mouth ulcers.
Okay.
I could get bad heartburn or indigestion. Then I'd get, pains in my stomach. I'd either be severely constipated or I could have diarrhea. And then when
Okay.
I'd have a flare up, then you'd get like, I'd have an awful sharp pain in my stomach, could be all over. And then I could have bloody diarrhea. And I remember
Okay.
even that time when I was in the hospital, I had quite a lot of ulcers in my stomach,
Okay.
along with the inflammation, all through it. I suppose my intestines would be quite sensitive. I would have had
Yeah.
an awful lot of ulcers in my intestines, my small intestine. So I think I have quite a bit of scar tissue there as well at the minute.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Fab.
yeah,
And
exactly.
the medication, then when you were put on that plan, the medication helped.
Yeah, well, it did. So I suppose I was diagnosed in 2004, and then I would have been on that medication. So I suppose 10 years I would have been on that medication, but it was a rough 10 years.
Yeah.
So in that 10 years, I would have had, I'd say, maybe 3 or 4 flare-ups in the year where I'd have to
Okay.
go, I could be either hospitalized or on a high dose of steroids to control it.
Okay.
And I also went through, I remember there was one summer where I went through about 3 months of a type of arthritis that's connected to Crohn's. So remember my hips, I would have had pains in my hips, but then my knees were the worst. I remember the pain in my knees was so severe. I'd go to the doctor and he'd put me on steroids and then it would settle it down. But then once I'd finished that course of steroids, my other knee might flare up. So this was going on for about 3 months where I couldn't even lie, the pain even lying down. There was nothing. It was just horrific, the pains in my knee. So eventually then they gave me steroid injections into my knees.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's, it's there's so many more connections to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this arthritis, like that. I was like, what? And I remember there was another stage when I got these lumps. up along my shin, and they were so sore to touch, and went to the doctor. And this was another side effect from Crohn's disease.
Wow.
Do you
Wow.
know? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So you
yeah.
went through the mill.
Yeah, so it was quite, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, like it wasn't constant,
Yeah.
but there was phases, you could go through a couple of weeks of this and then you could be fine and then you could go, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So tell us a little bit then. So I know there was a change,
there was a change, yeah.
something shifted, something happened for change. Tell us about maybe the moment, or maybe again a little bit like, for me, maybe it was just a transition over time for change. Because that's on that change, that's where we reconnected again,
Yeah,
to go down a healing path. So
yeah,
tell us a bit about that change, or where was it? When was it? Do you even remember it, or did you just
yeah,
slide in like for some?
yeah, yeah. So in 2013, I became pregnant with my first child, Ella. And I remember I was on so much medication that I went to the consultant and I wanted to come off the medication. So he was a bit reluctant. And then he said, look, we can take you down. So he kind of put me on a low dose of medication. And he said, we'll take you down. And because pregnancy can sometimes put you in remission. So he said, but
Okay.
then once you have the baby, he said, you have a high chance of having a bad flare up. So that's a grant. But I I myself then kind of came off my medication. So I was like, so I didn't want to be pumping all this in, when I was
Yeah.
pregnant. And so I stopped because I felt fine. And do you know what I mean? I felt good. And I came off the medication. And then we were at a wedding. One of Dara's friends was getting married, and his sister Rosie was home from Australia. So she actually started telling Dara about these essential oils. So Dara was like, oh, she's doing a class now next week. You need to go there and she might have something to help you. So I was kind of, oh God, yeah. Well, do you know what I mean? That's it. I was like, yeah, whatever. So I went along, and I'll never forget it. I was sitting, it was in Hayden's Hotel in Bannislone. I was sitting there, and she told a story about a girl who had colitis, and she was due to go in to have half her bowel removed. And then she started using this Zengest, essential oil, just basically rubbing it on her tummy. I went back, and she didn't have to have the operation. So I remember I bought an intro kit, and I started using that Zengest. And at the time I would have been I suppose my biggest symptom while I was pregnant was constipation. So I
Okay.
would have been severely constipated. So then I started rubbing the Zengest on my tummy, and I started getting regular. So this was going on anyway. And then I would have, when I had Ella, then there was supplements, lifelong vitality. I started taking them, and then I continued every day with the Zengest. Because that was my thing. I was like, this is
Yeah.
brilliant. It's helping me because, for the constipation. And the
Yeah.
thing about it is, if I had diarrhea, it would help. It basically just made my digestive system work in sync the way it should.
Yeah.
So I started taking the Lifelong Vitality, and I was using the Zengest. And I remember going back in the March, they brought me back, and they done so Ella was born in December. And I went back in March, then they were going doing a scope on me to see how things were, and then they decided on putting me back on medication.
Yeah.
And I'd only 5% inflammation, which was brilliant. So what he
Brilliant.
said
Yeah.
to me, he said, look, we'll leave you the way you are and come back to us then when you do have a flare up, and we'll assess everything then. And that was, oh God, I think 7 years. Wait, now, what are we telling out? About 9 years, I was have no medication. I was
Wow.
flying it. That's all I was using. And I
Yeah.
suppose that's how me and you reconnected back, was through the oils, wasn't it?
Through the oils, yeah. I was doing massage at the time, and I'd seen you put up a post, and I'd only opened my clinic at that time, and it was from my house.
Yeah.
And I seen you put up a post, and I think maybe it was lavender. I think maybe lavender caught me, and I knew I had already known from connecting in with the energies that I was going to use a product. So it had already kind of told me that something's going to come into your life. It's going to be a product, that you're going to use on your clients. So when you had put up maybe something about lavender and that, and then I was just like, oh, and obviously there's the trust there, and I said, okay, I'm going to contact Annette. So then that's how we got back in, and then obviously we met then in Marty, who's on the podcast already, how we all then, reconnected back in. But I
Yeah.
remember when we used to do the classes in my house. Well, remember the time I had the oil and it was breathe at the time, it's air now. And I remember at the
Oh
time
yeah.
I had the asthma attack. And
Mm,
that was the initial. So yours was, you know, to go into the oils and to use the oils, and we'll talk about how in your business in a few minutes, how that changed for you and everything. But like I remember that time when Eve had and I must have texted you. I don't know, did I text you? I know Adam was around the time as well, but Eve, I had the starter
breathe.
kit like you had as well, and then the it said put the breathe on her, put the breathe, and it was just a little bit in the notch there. And I mean, she was blue, like, and it was when we had the really, really bad freeze. And like she was blue in the lips and everything. And then I put that on, and within 30 seconds,
Yeah.
she was back. Like we were even on the phone to Weststock, and they were like, "Get a
Yeah.
brown bag," and we're like, "Where the hell? She's only
Yeah.
6 months old. Where am I
Yeah.
going to get
What
a
you
brown
do? Like,
bag?"
yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And how am I going to get her to breathe into it? But
Yeah.
that for me, that was the changing point. So I can see from you, like when something works and when
Yeah.
it works really, really well, you do want to tell people about it. You do want to, because there's probably people sitting at home here today, or listening to this podcast that think very much what you said there about, being diagnosed and just hearing disease.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
So
know?
that was my thing. Like, even now I'm like, forget about Crohn's disease, the name, like, because everybody that would have Crohn's disease, and I'm sure it's with so many ailments, it's we our symptoms are different.
Yeah,
They're unique to each of us. So like, I might meet someone that has Crohn's disease where like, their symptoms are completely different to my symptoms. So I always say, forget about the name of the disease or the ailment you have, treat your symptoms.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Because everything, and and like even I suppose the oils and everything opened up my natural for me, where like that first time I was like, oh god, essentialized, how are they? I was like, do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
I was like, and then I started going to you, remember, for the Reiki. And
yeah,
I suppose, and then that was like, I was like, Jesus Christ, this was nearly lifting me off the bed. I was like, what the hell is going on here? So that opened up a whole new thing for me. Then I went and done the Reiki course, and
yeah, yeah,
it was just, it completely blew my mind that there was something else out there bar. I was always like, oh, you go to the doctor, you get medicine, and like I'm still, like I'm not against, like I, do
anti, yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean? At the moment, I'm back on medication for my Crohn's,
There you
but
go.
I'm managing it with both, and it's, it all comes back to, for me, and I'm a total believer, stress is the biggest factor for everything,
Absolutely.
because I was flying it. And then we'll say my second girl, Maisie, we went through around time of COVID. So I had Ella, and then I had Maisie. 2.5 years after Ella, I had Maisie, and then 2 years after Maisie, I had twins. So it was kind of,
Just
you
throw
know.
them in there.
So I suppose I kind of I was forgetting about myself.
Yeah.
I was so busy concentrating on all them. And I remember the twins were only 5 weeks old and they got the whooping cough.
Oh yeah.
So went through, that was like
That was tough now. I remember that as well.
yeah, the two of them got it and they were in hospital for 2 weeks. And
Yeah.
it was a tough time. And then we got over all that, and then COVID hit. And then Maisie, my second girl, ended up in hospital with very severe kidney infection when she was 3. But long story short, anyway, it was discovered that Maisie she was born with a blockage from her kidney to her bladder to the aorta. That was
Okay.
completely blocked. So Maisie had to have reconstructive surgery. And
Okay.
we went through all that. And I remember it was the day she was in having her surgery. And I suppose the stress of it all building up. And I
Yeah.
remember she was down in her surgery and I was in, and Dara wasn't allowed into the hospital because it was COVID.
Yeah.
So I was there on my own. And I remember my stomach, just a big flare hit me.
Yeah.
And I remember I was
Triggered.
in,
Triggered
just
back into
completely
it.
triggered it. And I remember I was in the bathroom, and then I was stressing myself more because I was in the bathroom and afraid they'd ring me that she was ready, and to go collect
Yeah.
her. And I was, and I think it was just completely stressing me out. So I ended up the following week, then I went back and met the consultant in Banaslow. So he put me on, I go in now every 8 weeks for infusions where I
Okay.
get the medication. Where it did start it, I was going in every 4 weeks, but I have it pushed back now
There
to
you
every
go.
8 weeks, so I'm
That's
kind of
it.
like, you work with, you know what I mean? Like I'm, you know, and
Yeah.
I do think managing your stress is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I just
100%.
think it triggers everything, completely triggers everything.
And that kind of brought you in, and that's why I say about this podcast, because we can trigger back into stuff. We can
Yeah,
trigger back into things all the time. Or we can get our life can get really, really crazy busy, and we could see even there what's happened the
yeah,
past couple of weeks. Like, they're all things that block the energy, that
yeah,
block within our energy. And it's okay, because sometimes I do feel that people, who are, say, we're healed, and we've used all these alternatives and stuff like that, and then when we get an ailment back, we kind of think, oh my god, I've got it back.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
the one thing about it is doing exactly what you're doing, is going to the doctors and getting what you need, and then also doing the other work behind it, like the
exactly,
healing and the
exactly.
oils and everything, to get yourself back there.
Yeah,
Get
exactly.
yourself back there. One of the things there that you did say there, about stress, and I probably believe, because obviously we're in touch with each other, a lot of the time, probably one of the reasons why you stepped in and opened your own business for reflexology is to bring that. I know when we did the energy work, I always remember when we did the energy work, and I don't know, did I say it to you, but I said, oh god, you're gonna work with people, you're gonna have your own business, and you're like, I'm not.
That was mad.
She's another. But I remember it so clearly. I remember you
Yeah,
telling people, and that's what you do now.
yeah, yeah. And it's like when someone comes to me for reflexology, my one focus is like to give them the permission to lie off in the chair, close your eyes, and take this hour to get out of your head
Hmm.
and just relax. I think it's the most important. Do you know, like going for your reflexology session, but if you're going to be there and you're chatting and you're this and that, you're not getting, you need to switch off.
Yeah,
Do you know,
and
I
you can
think it's
see
so important.
100%, because you can see, even with me in the clinic, when I'm working on people and the chatters come, and they think
Yeah.
they think they're going to jump up with the bed and have a good chat,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, we won't be chatting now from now on.
Yeah.
Are we not? Like, do I
No.
have to be quiet?
Yeah. But you
And
know what? I think they benefit more, don't they? When they,
oh,
you know what I mean?
absolutely.
Totally.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now
Yeah.
you can do energy work. You can 100%, like reflexology is a bit different. No, you can
Mm.
actually. You
Mm.
can. Me and my French Sinead, but that's me. I do be talking
Yeah.
while she's doing it on me. But that's because we just don't have enough time to fill all the chats in.
You're killing two birds with one stone.
Exactly. But it is that thing of, you can do it while people, like we see with bioenergy, people are going around and talking.
Mm.
But there's something about, there is a huge difference, when we were talking about Reiki, and because I know you combine the both of them together. So when you're doing the reflexology, you're bringing that in again, if people are open to that. So, but that thing about, calming the mind and just
Yeah.
allowing them, and I always say it like, allowing them to switch off.
Yes. Giving them permission, because some people feel that they can't, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? I think when you give people permission to switch off,
yeah,
they're, they kind of relax more into it, don't they?
absolutely. That I don't have
Yeah.
to have this second thought. And thoughts will
Yeah.
come in and go, about what the day was and what I was thinking. And
Yeah.
you always know with the flutter of the eyes if they're going
Yeah.
in your head. But like that, probably for you, by the time you get to a certain position in the reflexology, for me, by the time I get to a certain position in the energy work, when that time arrives, it's like, oh yeah, you can see the eyes
Yeah.
going back and
Yeah.
forth, like, oh, they're, and that's it. And then they get up and they feel energized,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
is huge for people.
Yeah.
So, like, so is that's what you do now? Do you work every day? How does your business with the reflexology, and do you combine essential oils in there? Do you still give people the advice around essential oils and stuff like that? Or how
Yes.
does it work with your business?
Yeah. So I'm mainly open for the reflexology on a Tuesday and a Thursday at the moment.
Okay.
And I do the reflexology and I do have morning and evening appointments. And I
Okay.
would, if anyone comes looking for essential oils, yeah, I'll help them happily.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
information
so
about
it's
it. Yeah.
yeah. Do you know,
Absolutely
whatever. Yeah,
fantastic. And
yeah,
like that, you're still on that journey, you
yeah.
know,
Like
of
I think every day we're always learning, aren't we? It's like different,
100%.
you know, like even myself, like you said in the last few weeks, it's so easy. When I get into a little routine, I'm brilliant, but then I lose that routine, you know, and you kind of
Yeah.
have to switch yourself back in again,
Absolutely. And we could
you
see with the
know?
storm there, like even for the storm there, it was for me, like we'd no electricity. And I'm like, okay,
Mm.
let's just keep in the routine, Sharon. The gym was
Yeah,
closed. You're
yeah,
lost for life.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
that's it. And then when I kind of came back, there was a part of me, but obviously, again like that, it's just those small steps that you take on.
yeah,
Part of me is saying, don't bother going now today, Sharon. Don't
yeah,
bother.
yeah.
So
But
what's the
it's,
point of
yeah,
starting on a Tuesday?
yeah,
Wait till the Monday. But
yeah,
there are parts of us that we can heal through journaling. I know you did journaling,
yeah,
and the oils as well, because the oils are fantastic, and there's no
yeah,
ifs or buts about them. They
yeah.
work. They're very, very important for part of people's journey as well, even just for
But
relaxation.
even for the kids as well, like my kids, that they all have their little aisles and their, I suppose they grew up with it.
That's it.
That it's like, oh, mommy, my belly is sore. Have you an aisle? And you don't mind putting on. Half the time there might be, you know, pulling a fast one, but you're putting aisles on because you're like, oh, that arm is an aisle.
Subconsciously,
Do you know what I
subconsciously,
mean?
that's going
Yeah,
in. Yeah, like mine with
yeah,
the energy work. Oh, send me
yeah,
some energy. Or can you send the
yeah,
energies in today? I've got an exam. So that's all,
yeah,
what they grew up with. With you
yeah,
in
yeah.
is going to. So it's like what we're saying, and again, very much for you here. We're the ripple effect.
Yes,
We're the
yes,
ripple effect. So
yeah,
sometimes we have to go through that trauma. We have to go through that stuff to see, how we can change and what can, and obviously, coming into
yeah,
energy and everything for us. But then we become a ripple effect for others.
yeah, yeah.
So if there's one thing in it that you could, oh, sorry, and you're actually based in Potumna,
Kiltormer.
Kiltormer, sorry,
Yeah,
I'll get
yeah,
them
yeah,
wrong.
yeah. That's my
Kiltormer,
homeland for Tumla.
yeah. So Kiltormer in County Galway.
Yeah, just outside between Bannislow and Portumna.
Lovely. Okay.
Yeah,
And if you could give one thing, message to people out there because of where your journey that you came through, coming
yeah,
into the energy, and again stepping into your own business. If there was anything to anybody who's home at home there with any ailment, what would you say
yeah.
to them?
I suppose the number one thing I know for me is stress. Is just to look at your stress, manage your stress every day. Um, be it to go for a walk, get fresh air, journaling, as you said, like even that was for me, I was kind of like, wow, what about, you know what I mean? Where now
Have a
every
good write
night,
about.
you know what I mean? But now every night I write down, I dump everything out on a piece of
Yeah.
paper or I write things I'm grateful for. I even have my kids at it, like,
Yeah.
the twins will be going to bed now every night. And I say, you've 10 minutes and you can do what you want. And like one would be tied in his room because he likes to have it
Mm.
tidy going to
Yeah.
bed. Another is drawing her pictures. And then even my eldest girl, I said, if Anton is worrying you, write it down on a piece of paper. And I said, if you don't want to talk to me about it, you can leave your book sitting on your bed. And when I come to give you a kiss goodnight, if you want me to read it, leave it open. If she feels,
Yeah.
sometimes
So
they mightn't
powerful.
like, you know what I mean? And I just think these little things are amazing tips to have.
Amazing.
You
And that,
know,
yeah, and that dumping, that brain dumping is powerful as well, is because, we've 70 to 80,000 thoughts a day. We're only catching
yeah,
5% of them.
yeah,
95 is playing a story. And what
mm,
I give to my clients as well, and we've probably done it together anyways, is
yeah,
that thing of what worked well today,
yeah,
what didn't go so well,
yeah,
and how can I improve on that tomorrow? That's
yeah.
just like,
Because
oh,
I found like I was having stories in my head, and then when I wrote it, down, I was like, "What are you raving it?" You know what I mean? It just
yeah,
get it out of your head and read it back to yourself, and you're like, "Oh, here." Do you
yeah,
know? I was shocking, and it was you that got me into the habit of that.
yeah,
Write it down, and then when I was writing it down, you're getting it out of your head.
yeah, yeah.
It's
And
powerful. Yeah.
and we can see it differently then. We can see, oh God, actually it wasn't as big
No.
because we are conditioned, unfortunately, for negativity. So when I'm lying down at bed at night, my last 15 minutes before I go to sleep, of course, everything, what didn't happen today, who said this, who said what did I say, did I not say enough, why did I say that? If we can write those things that are kind of worrying us, or on the scale
Yeah.
of 1 to 10, 10 being super stressful, you know, zero being or one being no stress at all, if we can write those things, anything up above a seven,
Yeah.
going to help us heal. It's going to
Yeah.
help us, on that journey, of being less stressed tomorrow. Because, okay, that happened today. What worked well? So we always have to look for the positive first. What didn't go so well? And then how can I improve on it? And, that might be, again, drinking more water tomorrow. Maybe go, as you say, going for a walk, journaling. And
Mm.
really, and it's something that we've worked on together as well. It really comes back down to self-care.
Yeah, big time. Giving yourself that time each day. And don't feel guilty about giving yourself
Yeah,
time.
100%.
Do you know?
Guilt is an illusion, everybody.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
only something that as a child, we either seen somebody look at us wrong or we got given out to, and then we felt a bit of guilt of, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I made them angry or I made them cross
yeah,
or I made them upset. And we
yeah,
attached onto it. And then we
yeah.
lived for the rest of our life.
Mm,
If we can drop anything today from this podcast,
yeah, yeah,
drop guilt. Me and
yeah.
Annette say so. Uh, we don't need it. Okay, listen, Annette, thank you so, so much.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank
It's
you.
been a long time coming, but we got
Yeah,
there anyways. And look at fantastic journey. And definitely like that, you're giving people that hope. Because
yeah,
I do know, it is something that people come into the clinic with a lot. I share your story all the time.
yeah,
We send people, for that information from you all the time because
yeah.
it worked.
Yeah, and look, if there's anyone listening to this that want to contact me personally, just for a chat or whatever,
Yeah, I'll
you're
have
more
all
than
your
welcome because
details up there anyways with the podcast. So
yeah,
um okay, Annette, thank you
yeah.
so, so much,
Thank
and
you,
we will
Sharon.
talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. And as I say, if anybody's affected by anything that kind of comes up or wants to know more information, especially about Crohn's, you can contact Annette. And even the journey, there I will share all her Instagram and her pages and everything like that. So thank you very much, and I will look forward to seeing you all and my new speaker next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon.